Hey, Dirk here, Drumtrainer Online. Thanks for checking out our channel and thanks for watching this video. We recorded a great course with the amazing Keith Carlock in 24 in Dresden, Germany, next to the Dresdner Drum Bass Festival. An amazing course with one of the greatest drummers on the planet. And we did record this interview during that session, and it's really interesting to find out about Keith live. So I hope you enjoy it, and you know how it is. Give us some love, subscribe, ring the bell or whatever, and make sure that you don't miss out on our great tutorials, interviews and fun stuff. Thank you. And now Keith Carlock, meine Damen und Herren. Keith Carlock, meine Damen und Herren, at Drumtrainer Online, Drumtrainer Berlin, but not in Berlin, in Dresden, beim Dresdner Drum Bass Festival in Matthias studio, all in one studios. Is that right? Yeah. Keith, so great to have you. Good to see you.
Man, great to see you too.
We've just recorded some very, very informative tutorials, great solo. I mean, you delivered like every time, but I want to do an interview with you about your whole life.
Oh no.
No, but let's start at the beginning. You were born in Mississippi, right? Born and raised? Where?
Mississippi, yes. I was born in Greenville, which is in the Delta, which is where the blues kind of originated, you know. But of course I didn't know that when I was a kid, but it's just cool to say. But I learned it later. But yeah, I grew up in Mississippi. We moved to the Jackson area, which is the capital, more of a bigger city. Right. And that's where I was, you know, raised through high school. And then I went to Texas, North Texas State. It's actually University of North Texas now, right, outside of Dallas, Texas, for school, and then moved to New York from there.
So how old were you when you moved to Texas?
I was 17.
All right.
Yeah, right out of high school.
But about the Mississippi thing, like over here we grow up, we hear a lot of pop music on the radio, but we don't have like stations like you guys over there. Were you very much influenced by radio or TV, or what was your listening influence?
A lot of radio, a lot of classic rock radio, right, R&B radio. I was just turned on to stuff from my sisters and their boyfriends. I was the youngest of three.
All right.
So it was always around the house. And then I also watched a lot of late night talk shows. I was into the Johnny Carson show, which was really big. And I grew up in the 70s and 80s, you know. David Letterman. Watching the bands, Buddy Rich on the Tonight Show, or you know, Anton and Steve Jordan, Anton Fig, right, Steve Jordan on Letterman.
So what was
SNL?
the first...
You know, Saturday Night Live had a great band. Like, yeah.
And what was like the first musical influence you would say? Oh, this was my thing back then. What, like, was it more the rock thing or R&B?
It was kind of just. Music just kind of found me at first, I think. Like it's just I was drawn to music and the drums, listening to radio, and then later I definitely went through phases. You know, I went through a lot of rock phases. So I'd say that was the first thing that really I got into. You know, was playing along to records, a lot of progressive rock. You know,
like
Rush, and I remember. Like Kansas or Yes or
right. Bill Bruford.
Yeah, like all that kind of stuff was interesting to me. And man, I just loved it. I was just a sponge. I listened to all kinds of things.
And you had drum lessons all that time? When did you start taking lessons? What age?
I started taking lessons probably once I got into middle school, like around 5th or 6th grade. But I was playing before that. I started playing around the age 5, got my first snare drum, and yeah, I got into the school bands, but I was always playing with like a garage band in the neighborhood ever since I was maybe 9 or 10. You know, playing with older guys that knew more than I did, and I was just learning from them, and we were listening to records a lot and playing along and trying to figure out what they were doing.
And playing gigs at that age already? Or?
Yeah, yeah. And my parents were very supportive, and they were, which was, you know, a great thing. It could have been bad. Hmm?
Your parents, were they musicians too?
No, but they just put up with it.
Right.
You know, I was lucky. They were not musicians at all, but they were music fans. and they just supported it. Eventually, my dad had enough of the loud drums in the house, so he built a soundproof room in my garage, so I could just get away from them. But I mean, it was everything to me. I already knew at that age that this is what I want to do.
All right.
So I was really serious about it and just trying to soak up so many different types of things. I was turned on from my teachers to a lot of R&B and soul music, horn band music, Tower Power, Earth, Wind and Fire, Chicago, all that old great, the music, the songwriting is great, and the drumming is incredible. Got into that stuff, and later turned on to fusion and other types of jazz and instrumental music. I was just really just trying to figure it all out,
So you were listening to those records and then just playing along, or did you at that age already have like a structured practice plan or something like that?
I was learning a lot of the fundamentals with my school band
Right.
and teachers at the time. A lot of rudimentary drumming, or really
Drum corps also?
drum corps.
Right.
Not until I got into college, but I was doing a lot of rudiments all the way through grade school and high school, marching band, orchestral band at school. So I was playing timpani and
really?
other instruments, mostly timpani, and I didn't really get so into the mallet instruments, but I did a little bit. But I was just always all about playing drum set. That was my thing. So, but I was able to apply a lot of those techniques to the drums, which was a great thing. And obviously the rudiments and playing timpani.
I was just about to ask because I was watching the videos we recorded like 8 years ago, and I always thought that when you play the toms, maybe it's just me, but I thought it looks a little bit like a timpani player. You think that's an influence from that?
I think so, yeah.
Because it looks like you play more out of the drum than into the drum.
Yeah, exactly. I'm kind of, that's what I was taught when I played timpani, French grip, but it was like a play the stroke, and it just, you want to pull the sound out.
Right.
And it's more of that sensation of letting the stick rebound. So once I got to college and I studied with Ed Sof, that idea started to make sense because I could relate it to the timpani training I had, the Moeller technique that he taught me. So I started applying it to the drum set more than I had before, kind of using that whipping motion and letting the stick rebound, that kind of open sound, which really brought that out.
That's great. I saw that there's this great drumming video of Steve Jordan where he also talks about the timpani, that playing timpani for him so he could really feel the quarter notes as a whole note rather than just playing a snare drum, which always sounds staccato.
Right.
Was that also something for you, that it makes you play different, look different at the drums playing timpani?
Yeah, totally.
Because you could dampen the drum or not, right?
That's right. Yeah, I think subconsciously it's really been a huge influence with all that stuff.
Right. So Ed Sof was at North Texas State, what it was called back then, wasn't it?
University of North Texas
Right.
now. Yeah.
So you how long were you there? Like 4 years?
I was there for 4 years.
And you studied with him for 4 years, or also with other guys?
It was mostly him. Yeah, another guy named Henry Oxtel, the first couple of semesters, and then as I progressed in the curriculum, I was able to get into Ed's teaching. It was great.
And on German Wikipedia, it said you studied with Lawrence Stone, and I was like, I think they got it
Yeah.
from Stick Control, and they wrote in that you studied with him.
It's George Lawrence is his name.
All right.
That was one of my first teachers in Mississippi.
So
Yeah.
so that's actually right,
Yeah.
because I thought someone messed up because of George Lawrence
Well, it's
Stone,
not.
right?
Yeah, it's not him. It's not Lawrence Stone, but it is George Lawrence.
All right.
He's great.
So that was like your first teacher back then.
Yeah.
All right. And then did you work in the where's it, Dallas, right? In the Dallas area, or did you go right to New York from that?
I worked in the Dallas tri-state area. They call it like, that triangle with Dallas and Fort Worth,
Right.
and not tri-state. I'm thinking of New York now. Right. But anyway, it was Denton and Dallas and Fort Worth,
Right.
and played a lot of gigs. I was working I was working 7 nights a week, and then trying to go to school in the mornings.
And what
It was
kind of
nuts.
music? Like
I was playing in a horn band called Dallas Brass and Electric, and we did a lot of that stuff I was talking about, a lot of Tower Power, a lot of Earth, Wind and Fire, Chicago, you know, just classic R&B, horn music. It was a great band, really great players, and that was a great gig. And it was really, you know, I was making some money that helped, but it was just such a great training for me, you know, just to do all that stuff that I love so much and to
And
do
that's
it.
interesting. From a German perspective, we would say Texas, oh, he played ZZ Top all night.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I did some of that too. I
Right.
played with some great guitar players through the years from Texas.
So here's my
Yeah.
nerdy question. And I always get it mixed up. Texas shuffle, Chicago shuffle. So which one of those shuffles is the one where you play both hands unison?
I was taught that's the Chicago.
Oh,
So
okay.
yeah, Chicago is when they're both the
And,
shuffle.
and Texas is when you play one hand plays the quarter notes.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. So I hope I remember that next time.
And if
I
I'm
teach.
wrong, I'm sorry, whoever knows. But that's what I remember being taught. That's what I remember. But yeah. But it's obviously without the name, it's just there's just so many variances that you could do with it, you know.
Right.
Where you put the shuffle.
Right. But you already made money that way, supporting yourself, then playing in those bands while studying.
Yeah. I started working a lot, and it was, you know, it was helpful. I think my parents appreciated that I was helping out a little bit. You know, I could pay my rent or whatever, you know, and bills, and they could help me with the school tuition, but I could kind of help out, and so it was great.
And then from there you moved to New York, right?
That's right.
When was 96, I think?
96. Yeah, I moved to New York. I was at school in Texas from about 92. No, I'm sorry, 89 to 92. And then I left school, and I was still working a lot. So I kind of stayed in the Dallas area for another almost 4 years, just working all the time and practicing a lot. I just needed to get away from school because there was so much information. It was overwhelming, and I just wanted to process it all as best I could. And that 4 years was a chance to just really, you know, put it all together and grow.
So you played at night and practiced during the day?
Yeah, constant.
So
I was
you're-
videotaping myself. I was trying to figure
Right.
things out, and I was experimenting with the open bass drum and all that kind of stuff, and for playing more, you know, R&B and not just bebop kind of stuff.
So videotaping, nowadays it's easy to put the iPhone, but back then...
Yeah,
it was
back then I had the
quite a
huge
bit- I
camcorder,
was
you
just
know?
about to say, right. So you would record your whole practice session or bits of it and have a look at it afterwards?
Yeah, just to see what things were looking like mechanically, and I, you know, I've always been interested in technique and ways to stay loose and not get tense and tight.
So
And
would
so-
you recommend that even nowadays for students, record yourself while you're practicing?
I can't recommend it more. I mean,
Right.
it's really important for audio reasons too.
Of course.
But I think video can show you some things also that you maybe you miss, but, you know, just certain inconsistencies. But you know, audio is really the main thing. If you can just record yourself playing and you can find those places that need work, you know, I would do that for a lot of gigs back in the day, just to see what my tendencies were, where I would tend to rush or drag, or something didn't feel very good, or it felt like I was struggling, or, you know, it just, that helps you find the things that you need to practice, you know, and you start to learn how to hear those things. And nowadays everyone hears with their eyes, you know, anyway, because of the Instagram age and social media. Everyone watches just as much as they're listening. So I guess it's kind of important to
But that
be in
has
tune
changed
with
a
that,
lot.
you know?
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
So would you have a practice log back then that you had a plan, a weekly plan or something, or would you just sit down and start wherever you wanted to?
I just had a lot of conceptual stuff that Ed taught, you know, that I would go through, but mostly it was probably just learning music for the gigs that I was doing. That kept me really busy. Just constantly learning music, all different types of music, different genres. And I think for me, it was like figuring out how, obviously you want to be able to adapt to any situation that you're put in. But I wanted to kind of figure out a way to, I think my idea was just to be myself within all those styles. Find a way that it sounds cohesive in a way that's me, you know. And I could just kind of go there if I needed to go into whatever it might be in the music, you know, that it would just kind of flow. It's hard to put into words, but I hope that makes sense.
But since you said you played so much that were paid gigs, so I guess you had to play a lot of groove music, like you said. So did that, is that where your heart hitting punch and feel comes from all those gigs?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I was playing a lot. And that was a great training ground. And then moving to New York just gave a lot more possibilities, you know, on the high profile end where I was, you know, getting noticed and stuff. So just, yeah, man, started doing a lot of touring. I've been touring for like, it was a nice run for 20 plus years of just nonstop touring. So it's
when you came to New York, you started the touring thing.
Yeah.
All right. How did that develop then? But of course, you can't just go there and, hey, I'm here. So how did you hook up with people, or did you know people before?
Yeah, I knew some people I went to school with that moved there before me, and that's really important. Like, you got to realize that the people that you're with in school are usually the people that you're probably going to work with later in life, right, on a more professional level, or they're going to at least turn you on or recommend you. So it's good to know that you're already kind of creating your network of people. And so I knew some people that moved ahead of me, and I met Lou Marini, Blue Lou from the Blues Brothers, because he was an alumni of North Texas. All right. He had some family in Dallas that he would visit every now and then. Got to know him because he sat in with this band that I was in, this horn band. And through that connection, he's, you know, obviously in New York, so he kind of took me under his wing when I moved there, and he got me into the Blues Brothers band, and that was like my first touring experience, going to Japan and Europe quite a bit, and it was really fun.
When was that?
That would have been around, I guess, let me see, around 90, I don't know, 98-ish maybe, 99.
Wasn't Danny Gottlieb also playing in that band? Because I met him once at a New Year's Eve thing. Yep. Great band.
Yeah. Danny and I would kind of go back and forth.
All right.
When I don't know, maybe he wasn't available and I got in for a minute and we just kind of went back and forth. But I did it for a while. And I loved it, man. It was fun getting to play with Cropper, and Duck Dunn was there for some of the gigs.
And some great music.
That's they're the originators of that Stax Memphis sound, right, and, you know, all that. And then Lou Marini, Alan Rubin, the horn section from Saturday Night Live at the time. And they play with everybody in a lot of sessions, but it was just a great way to kind of get into something right away. You know,
and you were able to support yourself right away when you got into that city, which is not so easy, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't expect that, but I had some money saved, but I didn't know how long it would last. Right. But luckily, I got in on that, and that kind of led to some other things, and I started playing with Krentz, Wayne Krentz.
I was just about to say, because that here in Germany, that was the first thing. Oh, there's this guy with Wayne Krentz. So this is how we got to know your name. I think the first time everyone was talking about that trio.
That was a great.
That was you, Wayne Krentz, and Tim, the name I can't pronounce.
Yeah, Tim LaFave.
Tim LaFave.
Bass player. Okay. But we had this gig at the 55 bar, which was like this dive bar, but it's a beautiful place in a not in a a way of that you would think beautiful, like, but it was beautiful because it was just such a great place to play where you could just do whatever you want, and it's no longer there, but it had a long history even before I moved there, and I knew about it. I used to go hear Mike Stern play there, or various people when I would visit.
I went there once. They had a happy hour, I think, and they had Long Island iced tea, and fucking killed me. I didn't even know about Long Island iced tea. So what? Again,
those are lethal, man. I remember those. Yeah, so we had every Thursday night. Eventually, it turned into an every Thursday night gig when we could do it. And for years, we were playing that night, and we had several rehearsals a week. I mean, it was a real band, you know, and I think we, you know, it really influenced a lot of people, and it was like a really you know, now that I realize that, it's really cool. But it was a really special time for me. I was finding ways to kind of do what I do. My thing kind of developed in that band a lot, you know, because I was more of a groove player, and then this allowed me to find ways to play groove that wasn't just straight up and down groove. It was a different way, kind of what we were talking about earlier. So
and is that also that like Donald Fagen, would they come to the club, or where how would they find out about you?
Yeah, Wayne actually worked with Steely Dan in I think '96 on a tour, right. And so they knew him, so they were coming to check out his band. And yeah, Donald and Walter would come out on occasion, and Donald Fagen, he sat in on Rhodes with us one night, and Tim LaFave was out of town, and Will Lee was subbing. Oh, really? The great bass player Will Lee, that night that Fagen played, and it was great. It was just one of those moments. I was like, man, if nothing else happens, this is really cool. You know what I mean? That was just a great moment, and I was just like, kind of a pinch yourself kind of a thing, right? And
amazing.
And so that's kind of how they were made aware of me, and they wanted us to record in their studio in New York, which we did one day, and Donald and Walter were, you know, it was a little bit vague, but I think they were going to produce something for us. They were really interested in this band.
All right.
And then I think just from that situation, they decided to call me when they were making their new record, which was Two Against Nature, their first record after a long hiatus. And that's how I got involved initially, is doing those sessions for that record. And
how was that? Because I mean, I read those Jeff Porcaro interviews back in the days. He said, "Oh, it was." I saw people crying in the studio, and they were known as like very harsh guys back in the LA times, weren't they? How was it working with those?
You know, it was cool. I didn't have a situation like that. Maybe they mellowed a little bit, but I'm not sure, you know, how it was then. But my experience was pretty normal situation. It was just high pressure because you respect those guys so much in the music, and it's definitely. I was quite a bit nervous at the beginning, you know. I because so much was just happening so fast, you know, and so it was just a lot. But I've always felt ready, but I just, because it was those guys, it was kind of like as a musician, they're just one of the elite that you kind of like. It's a nice feather in the cap to work with those guys. So, so I ended up getting a song on that. You know, they use different rhythm sections throughout the whole process. I ended up getting a song, which is amazing, and I was really happy about that on that record. It ended up winning Grammy of the Year, and it was like a big comeback. And so since then, I think they did one tour with Ricky Lawson in 2000, and then they started calling me for their next record, which came out in 2003 or 2002, I can't remember. And I kept getting called back. It was great. You know, I was a lot more confident. I had a few years to kind of get stuff more together, you know, or at least just, you know, from what I remember, it seems like it just was, things were happening. It was just more, it was happening, you know. Anyway, we were recording 2 or 3 songs at a time, and then they would overdub the rest. And then I thought, well, maybe that's all I'm going to do. But they kept calling the same guys back, and it turned into like a unit, which kind of ended up being the touring band. But they called me to tour after that record came out. And I'll never forget Walter calling me and asking me if I want to go on the road. And it was just like, I'll never forget that moment, because I was like, man, I actually, you know, I'm going to do this. Like, this is something I kind of dreamed about, you know. So it was great. And so we we toured in '03, and then it just became a unit. They really liked this band and trusted this band, and it's been pretty much the same guys since 2003, and we're still active. We were just out with touring with the Eagles as
really?
like a double bill. It was really fun. So yeah, over 20 years.
That's so cool. And how was it working in the studio? Would they come in and this is a song, or would you just work on it from scratch? Do you develop things? I don't think so, right? They had like whole songs already, and you just had to learn them.
Yeah, they would have a chart. We would listen to the demo.
Oh, they would have charts, extra charts, right?
It was a pretty typical session, I guess. You know, with that kind of, you know, they're schooled musicians, so, and they're coming from that that place, you know. So luckily, I had that background as well, going to school and learning how to read and doing those type of sessions. So yeah, we would just listen down and then go out and start tracking, and they would record from the first run through. It's just always, the tape's always rolling. We'd do maybe 10 to 15 takes, and then they would listen back and pick what they wanted. And
that was still old school tape time, or
yeah,
right?
Yep. I think they transferred it to Pro Tools maybe, but we recorded drums with tape. So yeah, it was cool. I didn't really have a bad experience. It was just a high pressure situation. You know, you wanted to nail it, so it was like, you know, of course.
And from that, that led into, of course, a lot of other things. You did John Mayer, you did Sting, you did Toto. How was it coming from that gig, you think, or just because of your reputation, or did you know people in LA? How did that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was all of that, but I think Steely Dan certainly, you know, put me on the map to where people found out about me, and through that, I think through Steely Dan, Sting learned about me, and that was the next thing that happened. I toured with Sting in 04 and 05, or the end of 03. After that first tour with Steely Dan, it was 03 through 05, and that was amazing. That was fun. And then Steely Dan worked again. Like, it kind of worked out to where that was kind of in a crack, and then I went back with Steely Dan, and every time Steely Dan would go out, they would usually take a break in those days. They'd take a year or two break and then come back. And then eventually it started being every year. But in those breaks, I got a few calls that I took with Mayer, and some stuff with James Taylor, which was great. Subbing for the great Steve Gadd.
I was just about to say, I saw him 2 times in Berlin. It was like so amazing, and I love the Russ Kunkel played on a lot of those records.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, he kind of wrote the book and that stuff.
Did you play Fire and Rain live?
Yeah.
Did you play it with brushes or with sticks? Because it always sounds like brushes and sticks.
Yeah, I believe I played it with brushes. I could have done both. I might have played with sticks, maybe switched to sticks at the end.
Because I was talking to this famous German drummer, and he even from that song he developed a brush stick because he liked that so much. So he taped his brushes to his sticks. So what I really liked that idea.
Yeah, that was a great band. Really, it was really musical. Great band, incredible musicians.
Incredible guitarist too, isn't he?
He's amazing. Yeah, great guitar player. Rolling kind of. It's a great feeling thing. It's fun to play with, and just I kind of followed him a lot more than anything else.
And would you in ballads with him? Would you take a metronome?
Only to get tempos, but not to play with.
But I saw them play with Steve Gadd, and with a drop dead silence in front of a very slow ballad, and he would grab his metronome, put it on, was super loud. You could hear it into the last one. I said, yes, now I can use my metronome. I was so happy that I could see that. Yeah. That even you use it. So you use a metronome for certain tempos to count yourself in?
Yeah, I do all the time now. Right. I'm pretty good at getting in the zone, just using my memory, but I want to be sure, because sometimes when songs can be in different orders in the set, if things get moved around, and you're going from like a different tempo to this tempo now, and it's just sometimes you're just your adrenaline's going, and you think something should be faster or slower, and I like to just check it and just.
I'm so happy.
Take a deep breath, check it, and don't be in a hurry. They can wait. I want to make sure it's right, and I'll check it before I count it off.
But
yeah,
that's a great advice. They can wait, right?
Yeah, I want to make sure it's right. I don't want to start and have to either slow down or speed up or feel like a fool, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's a great thing. It's a great tool to have now, and yeah, I've been using it with Steely Dan forever.
So with Steely Dan, you play with click tracks sometimes, or is it all?
Sometimes I leave it in.
Right.
Most of the time, it's just to get the tempo to count off. But there's a few tunes where it feels good to leave it in. The ones that are really kind of program sounding.
All right.
But the ones that move around more, I don't leave it in. So it just kind of depends on the song. I'm the only one that hears it, so it's just for me to kind of settle in.
Great.
But yeah.
And but you never thought about moving to LA. You are a New York guy. Now you live in Nashville, I think. So that was your home base, New York, for all those gigs.
Yeah. I was in New York from like 96 through 2016 or something like that. And I've been in Nashville since then.
Right, and we were talking about that years ago, and you told me, I'm moving to Nashville. I said, it's for the studio scene, right? And you said, no, it's for my parents. Because you have your family and...
Yeah, I was, I still kind of use my New York time as, that's my people, that's my connections.
Right.
And so Nashville, even though there's a lot going on, and I really love being there, there's a lot of stuff happening. I'm still in my scene that I kind of developed through all those years, mostly. So really all I need is an airport, and they have a great airport. And it's great, it's a really cool change just to get out of the city and have like more of a relaxed vibe,
So you also work in Nashville yourself, like in the studios, or I think you have your own studio in your house now?
Yeah, I'm mostly doing that, like just remote sessions for people. It's been a lot busier than I thought it would be, and so that's really cool.
So how did you learn all that?
Through the lockdown of the pandemic.
All right.
I had some engineers come over and help me learn Pro Tools. So I learned that enough to do drums and be self-sufficient by myself. I don't have to have any help now.
That's great.
So I have a great sounding room. I didn't have to do much work to it, and I got all the gear I needed, and I got some great mics, and it sounds really good, like just as good as any other studio that I've been to. It's really great sounding stuff. I've had some help, dialing it in, but yeah, I do a lot of that. I mean, occasionally I'll do sessions in town, but mostly from home. Yeah.
Right. And how is keeping the balance between being a family, a father of 3, and being a musician on the road? Is that difficult for you, or is
it's I love it, but I love the family thing. I love being a dad, and it's really great. Been great for me. But when I'm home, that's kind of the focus. I want to be there for them. I want to be present and be a part of everything that they're into. And then, I'll have my sessions and stuff, but it's really separate from the family,
Right.
And then I have to kind of put on the Keith the musician hat when I leave and like go out and tour or whatever it might be. So it takes a minute to adjust, to okay, now I'm this guy, But then I go home and it's just like, they don't want to hear about any of this. They just, it's just...
They're not interested.
I don't think so. You know what I mean? But it's just like going from that to this, the transition takes a minute,
Yeah.
Especially if it's a long tour.
Of course.
Because it's like, I come home and it's like, just dad, You're not like... I'm like, well, people like me out there. I get treated a certain way, and like, they don't care.
Well,
it's
that's
interesting.
kind of great, though, isn't it? That's funny. Yeah, great. Let's nerd out a little bit, because I see the snare drum. That's your own snare drum, right? A Gretsch. What is it called? I have to. Ich nehme die einfach.
Yeah, it's a brass.
Yeah, it's the same, isn't it?
5.5 brass, and
it's heavy.
It's very heavy. Well, it's not.
And it looks cool.
Yeah, and
This is brass?
Yep.
How did they make this?
They dip it into some kind of concoction that they came up with that is acidic, and I don't know all the ingredients, but it turns it into a patina vibe. You know, it looks aged, and that's what I wanted. I wanted it to look like it had been through, like dug up from underneath the ground or something. And this is great. And every drum has its own unique print. Like they're not the same.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the vibe. It's like it just kind of tarnishes it and makes it look rustic.
And I'm not the biggest gear nerd, but how came you up with what is your favorite snare drum sounds like? Because you said it's brass.
Yeah, I always liked the brass snare drums. I played piccolos for a long time,
Right.
and 5.5s, and I wanted something that could do both. So obviously it's got the depth for if you want that more meteor vibe, and then if you really torque it up, it's got a nice kind of piccolo sound because it's brass. It really cuts through on stage.
This is what I liked during the recording. This is like very low.
Yeah.
And the other one is so high. So I was amazed that it's both the same drum.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah, so it's kind of one of those things that can get anything you need. That was the idea. You know, the low pitch stuff, the high pitch stuff, it all sounds great. There's no range that's not happening. So it's kind of like you only need one drum. If you're going to have it, this is a good one, especially for recording. But I just like the brass sound, and we went for just typical Gretsch hardware, the die-cast hoops. I did 10 lugs, and I'm really bad with names of throw-offs and stuff, but it's all like basic, typical Gretsch stuff, and it came out great. I was really, really happy with it.
Totally cool. So you never really use a bigger snares like 6.5 or even 7?
Maybe occasional, but
in a live situation or more in the studio?
It depends, but I typically go for 5.5, because I can get what I want out of it. But I have used deeper snares, but I would say this is kind of my go-to. And if I want something really different, I don't really go deeper. I would go even more shallow,
All right.
Usually. So.
And since we're talking about recording, you record your own stuff, and you're known for that open bass drum sound. And I was amazed back then, nothing in there, just that drum. So when you record stuff for other people, can you always do that, or do you also have other things that you put stuff in your bass drum when you record yourself, or have a hole, or do you always do it that way? Take it or leave it?
Yeah, this kind of is something I do when I'm with like the Krantz trio or instrumental stuff, where there's room for that kind of sonic low end thing. But a lot of my recording is, I'll use a 22 and it'll be stuffed and muffled, and I'll have a hole, more typical studio sound. And live with Steely Dan and most of those other groups that I play with, I'll use more of a studio kind of tight thing like that. But this is fun for me because it kind of became part of my sound in certain scenarios, and I still try to do it when I can because I love it. But it's not right for everything.
Right.
But
that was my question.
Yeah,
right?
It could be, but most people want it that tight thing. So I do both.
That's why I think a lot of people couldn't deal with that drum sound. Right?
Yeah, no, it definitely takes up a lot of those frequencies. So it has to be in the right situation. I've found that with trios, it works best that I've been in, or if you're in a club where you're not mic'd, it can fill out the room in a nice way. But a lot of my recording these days, I'm using a hole and a 22, and it's that same thing. Occasionally this kind of vibe if someone asks for it because they want that sound, but usually it's it's pop tunes or rock tunes, and it just needs to be punchy and not open like that.
Right. So you do everything you don't have a technician at home. You do everything on your own, like how you put on the mics, how you tune your drums. You look at the song, and then this is what you.
Yeah, I'll pick the snare drum that I think is great for it, and I might change the bass drum, and I do all the mic placement and everything. So it's cool.
That's great.
Yeah.
So we were talking about Instagram before, like you said, nowadays you also hear with your eyes in a way. Since we are at school, what would be a recommendation from you to younger kids who want to make it somehow in the business? And I think the business maybe got more difficult in the past years, didn't it? Would you agree on that making money with actual playing music got more difficult, or do you think it got easier?
I think it's just changed. I'm kind of more in the old school with the artists, most of the artists that I've worked with, and I think now, as the younger artists are coming out, I don't know how they treat their musicians. I've heard good and bad stories, but the old school thing is it's really, luckily I kind of got into that thing where they were still taking care of their people, and I don't know how much of that scene still exists. I'm not really sure, but I know with social media and everything, there's other ways to, if you're a content creator or you do a lot of posting, and I mean, there's ways to make money with that. That's not anything I've tapped into. There's just another world of all that stuff.
But you're not one of those guys, or everything used to be better.
I try not to be that guy. Of course I know what I know in my experience, but I have to be open. It took a while to be okay with everyone always filming everything, or because when people post stuff, it's got to be this little short snippet, and it always tends to be the fast part, or the lick, or what, what I mean? Like, it's always the same stuff, because they'll just pick the stuff that's that's the most stuff.
I know.
And so I wish that that I could select some things. So that's where I need to be more active and select what I think is good and put out there. But I just don't. You're
saying something that seems to be an issue. We tried that at Drumtrainer. We post some really great groovy stuff, what we think is so amazing, and then we post some chop stuff, and of course the chop stuff gets way more views than the other stuff. So maybe it's also what it is. But like let's say if you have to boil it down to a tip or one or two tips to young musicians who want to be actual professional musicians or drummers, what would you say?
I would just say to listen to all the greats, realize where everything came from, the lineage of the players, and really study why it sounds so good and why they're great, and be adaptable to different types of situations that'll be thrown your way musically. Just well-rounded, because you kind of have to be these days. Unless you're in a band that's just doing their thing. But I always wanted to be a sideman where I could just, I loved so many types of things that I want to be more broad that way, And so I think the most important thing is just to be adaptable and to have your own sound and things that you do that are creative, but also add to the music and make it sound the best it can sound. And finding ways to do that in a mature way, but bringing your thing to it. Bring something new, something fresh. And you just got to get out there and that's the other thing. I think social media gives you a chance to get heard, without being in a big city or having to make a big move. But you still got to be active and meet people in whatever way you can, whether it's online or in person. People have to know that you exist, obviously, and just make it has to feel good. That's the main thing. It's all about feel and sound and touch, and then also just having that and then adapting to the music. That's the thing.
That were wise closing words. Thank you so much, Keith. It was great to have you. Drumtrainer Online, meine Damen und Herren. Keith Carlock. Check out those videos, and I see you around. Tschüsschen. Hey, beautiful drum nerds all around the world. If you liked that video, please give us some love and click there for subscription. And if you want to see another cool video, click there and you see another cool video. How cool is that? So I hope to see you around. Stay tuned.